posted about this yesterday. This is Happy Ever After by Tony Bradman. Mr.wolf bounces back. Illustrated by Sarah Warburton. If you're wondering, I just found this on my bookshelf. I don't know. It's lying there from since so long. I bought this when I had been to the book by Read sale. So I thought let's read it out to you all. Night was falling, and deep in the heart of the forest, the shadows were gathering round Mr. Wolf as he trailed down the path towards home. It had been a very bad day. For one thing, Mr. Wolf had failed to catch any of the three little pigs. It was odd, he thought. He could easily have snapped up the first two, yet for some reason he'd let them get away. And though he huffed and puffed at the third little pig's house, his heart hadn't really been in it. As for the disaster with the little Red Riding Hood, it had all been going so well too. He had been quite enjoying pretending to be her granny, and the what big eyes and teeth you have got game. Then suddenly that nasty woodcutter had burst into the cottage and gone for him with an axe. "Oh no," said Mrs. Wolf when Mr. Wolf got home. "Are you all right, dear? What happened this time?" "It's a long story," said Mr. Wolf, sitting down. "Actually, it's two long stories, but I'll tell you later. Where are the cubs?" "Daddy!" squeaked three bundles of grey fur. They raced up to him and jumped onto his lap. He couldn't help smiling, even though he was worn out. "What's for dinner, Daddy?" they squeaked. "I'm sorry, kids," said Mr. Wolf. "I was hoping we'd be having roast little pig this evening, but I had a few problems." "Not to worry," said Mrs. Wolf cheerily. "Too much meat probably isn't good for us. I'll soon rustle something else up." And that's what she said. The supper she made was very tasty. Afterward, Mr. Wolf played rough and tumble with the cubs. At the bedtime, he read them their favorite stories. Once they were asleep, he made a nice pot of tea and sat by the fire with Mrs. Wolf. "I used to be brilliant at bringing home the bacon," he muttered, "but these days I am just hopeless." He couldn't understand it. He had always been known in the forest as the big bad wolf, the strongest, fastest, and the scariest wolf of them all. So why couldn't he catch anything for his family to eat? Suddenly, he realized what the problem was. He couldn't hurt the little creatures anymore. These days, they all reminded him of his own cubs. "Right, that's it," Mr. Wolf said at last. "I have come to a decision." "Really?" said Mrs. Wolf. "What are you going to do?" "I'll get a different job," said Mr. Wolf. "That's what." So the next morning, Mr. Wolf rose early, washed and combed his fur. He waved goodbye to Mrs. Wolf and dropped the cubs off at school. Then he headed to the forest job center. He took a deep breath and went in. He He sat in the waiting room. Then he was shown into the office of Mrs. Bear. "Hello," she said, smiling. "How may I help you today?" "I'd like a job," Mr. Wolf said nervously.